Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Ayin Hey. We're at the second line from the top. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav Zutra bar Tuvia. Omar Rav Zutra bar Tuvia taught us three things in the name of Rav. Hamoiteach chut shel tefira b'Shabbos. If one's stitches become unraveled, they loosened up, and he tightens the stitching thread in order to tighten the stitches of his garment. Chayav chatas. He is liable to chatas because this is regarded as the melacha of teifer, of sewing. The second thing he taught us was v'aloi meid davar echad min hamagish. One who chooses to learn even one thing, even a dvar Torah, from this fellow who's called a magish. Who is a magish? Says Rashi, min hamamshich avodah zarah. This fellow who is totally infatuated with avodah zarah, and he attempts to influence others, to incite others to join the avodah zarah. One who gets involved with this person, chayav misa, he's liable to death. We want to keep away from him. If he even learns a dvar Torah from him, he's chayav misa, because this person is very dangerous. He can influence him and bring him to spiritual death. The third thing he taught us was if one has the intellectual capacity, ability, the chachma, to be machashiv tkufos mazolis, to calculate the tkufos, the seasons of the year, the mazolis, the heavenly bodies and constellations, and reflect upon the order, the preciseness, the exactness of Hashem's world, and he neglects to do so, one is not allowed to learn from him. This person neglects his wisdom, he's not regarded as a chacham, and one is not meant to learn from him. Continues the Gemara, this word megushta, magash, that we just mentioned, this is found in other places as well. What is the exact meaning of this word? Rav Shmuel, we have a machlekes between Rav Shmuel. Chad Omar Charshi. One defines this term of megushta to refer to a fellow who is a charshi, says Rashi, mechashiv, a sorcerer, one who's involved in witchcraft. V'chad Omar, the other shita says that the meaning is gedufi. It's this fellow who curses Hashem, who's heavily involved with the Zorah, and is inciting others to do so. So you have a machlokes in Rav Shmuel, and when unsure who subscribes to what definition, says the Gemara, testayim, you can be sure the Rav the Amar gedufi. It's actually Rav who translates it as gedufi, the person who incites to avodah zarah. How do we know that? From the Gemara we just mentioned, the Amar Rav Zutra bar Tuvia, Amar Rav, haloi davar echad min hamagish. One who learns one thing from this magish, chayav misa. Says the Gemara, apparently, Rav, who is telling us this halacha, and he regards this involvement with the magish to be so serious, to the point of chayav misa. Apparently this magish is a person who is so connected to avodah zarah. He curses Hashem, he incites others to avodah zarah, and therefore, the person who gets involved with him is chayav misa. This akadaita harshi, because if you suggest that the magish here is merely referring to this person who's involved in witchcraft, why is it so terrible? Haksiv, doesn't it say in the pasuk, leisil medlases? We're not meant to learn these magic stuff in order to do them. Lases. Aval atalamed lahavin alahiris. The pasuk stresses, don't learn in order to do, but you may learn this information of kishav if there is a noble purpose here. Lahavin, to understand it, to appreciate it. What's the purpose of understanding? Says Rashi, in order to be able to oppose a navi sheker, false prophet, who will present himself as an authentic prophet, who will do miracles, and if you really recognize, you can discern what he's doing to be kishav, you'll be able to see right through it. So if the point and purpose of learning the kishav is for a good purpose, lahavin, or lahiris, in order to teach, in order to tell others, to define what exactly is asr, what is regarded as kishav, what is not regarded as kishav. So if you're learning it for a higher purpose, you're allowed to. So why is it so terrible to learn something from this magash? Perhaps if we're learning it for a good reason, lahavin lahiris, you may get involved with something, you may learn it. This indeed proves that, according to Rav, the term Magash is not referring to the person who's involved in witchcraft, or rather the Megadif, the person who curses Hashem, influences others, incites others to Avodah Zarah, and that is what Rav was referring to. That one who learns Davar Echad Min HaMagash, this fellow, this inciter, he's Chayv Misa because he'll get influenced by him. Continues the Gemara, Omar Rab Shimon Pazi, Omar Rab Shimon Levi, Mishum Bakapara, Kol HaYedei Lachashiv, B'tkufois U'Mazolis, one who has the ability, the Chachma, to be Machashiv, to calculate, to figure out B'tkufois U'Mazolis, the seasons and the heavenly constellations. He neglects to do so. He neglects to appreciate the system, the orderly system of Hashem's world. Olav HaKosiv Omer. On him the pasuk says, Ve'espoil Hashem lo yabitu. In the work of Hashem, they don't gaze. Ve'umasa yodav lo yiro. In His handiwork, they don't contemplate. As Mashal explains, it's referring to two steps. So lo yabitu is referring to physically, actually gazing up to the heavens, what you can see with your own eyes. The second part of the pasuk, Umasa yodav lo yiro, is referring to the intellectual engagement, the calculations, etc. So if a person neglects to get involved himself in these things, the pasuk negates him. We're not meant to conduct himself in this manner. Hashem gives you the capacity, the ability to do so. We're meant to do so. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Yonasan, Minayin shemitzvah la'adam l'chashev tkufas ha'mazolis. How do we know that it's actually a mitzvah to get involved in these calculations? Shenamar shmartem v'asisem. You're meant to safeguard them and to do them. Ki hi chachmaschem ubinaschem. Because she is your wisdom and your understanding le'enei amim, to the eyes of the nations. Says the Gemara, which chachma and bina of Klal Yisrael is recognizable to the nations? Eizei chachma bina shehi le'enei amim. Certainly it's not our Torah. They can't relate to that. Have omer, apparently, what are we referring to? Zeh chishuv tkufas mazolis is referring to the calculation of the tkufas of these seasons and the mazolis of the heavenly constellations. Because the events down in this world are influenced by the heavenly systems. Hashem uses these systems, the Kechavim, the Mazolis, to shower down His energy, so to speak, on this world. The events of this world are influenced, are driven by those Kechavim, Mazolis. Certainly they don't have independent authority. They're merely used as vehicles, as a means of Hashem directing the events in this world. It's like a pipeline, water flowing through a pipe. So the system of the Kechavim, the Mazolis, have exert great influence on the events taking place in this world. As Rashi points out, the Tkufas, these seasons, the rain seasons, how much rain is going to be, etc., is influenced by the heavenly bodies. And therefore, this is recognizable, Eini Amim. So a Yid who engages in this Chachma and properly calculates and foresees, anticipates the weather, the rains, etc., so this is something which is visible, appreciated, and recognizable by the nations as well. As Gemara points out, this is a mitzvah, because contemplating the order, the organization of the heavenly bodies, makes it very clear and visible, very obvious, that there's a high order in place. Nothing's random. Everything's being set in place, directed, influenced by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who set forth this system with exactness and preciseness. And therefore it reflects Hashem's presence and His power and His authority and His controlling of events down here on earth. Indeed, this is a mitzvah to get involved with. So in summary, we learned in the name of Rav 3 halachas. One who tightens that chut shel tefira, it's a malacha of teifer. One who learns from this magash, he's chayv misa. One who does not get himself involved in calculating the kufos and the mazolis. He's not really a true chacham. He's not utilizing his chachma properly. He's neglecting to appreciate Hashem's world and to recognize Hashem's presence properly. And therefore, asur lilmud himenu, one is not allowed to learn from him. Rav Yechon concludes that it's actually a mitzvah to be machashe betkufos and mazolis. Continues the Gemara. Hatzot tzvi, one who traps a deer. Tanar Rabbanan, we learned in the Bryce. Hatzot chilazon. This chilazon is this kind of snail which contained this bluish dye, which was used for the coloring, the dyeing of the wool in the Mishkan. It's something which was, for the most part, forgotten from Klal Yisrael. Therefore, for the most part, today we don't wear we don't have the dye in our tzitzis. Actually, pre-war, before the Second World War, there was a tzaddik by the name of the Radziner who he invested a lot of effort in trying to research, figure out exactly the true identity of this chilazon snail or fish. He went around into many places, aquariums, etc., to figure it out, and he claimed to have discovered the true identity of the chilazon. And him and his followers began wearing the chilazon dye on their tzitzis. We went to have tchilas on tzitzis, so he he indeed fulfilled that mitzvah. He claimed that he found the true source of the tchilas. But the authorities, even in his generation, didn't really accept this fact as something definite, and even today, for the most part, most people don't feature the tchilas dye on their tzitzis. So in any case, in the time of the Mishkan, they certainly had it. Rashi actually describes it as something which comes up every 70 years. Rashi says it's kimin dog katan, it's like a small fish. Surfaces once in 70 years. In any case, so a person who traps his sod chilazon va'apoitzoy, and then he extracts its dye, einu chayiv ala'achas. He's only chayiv one. He did one malacha. He did the malacha of tzeda, of trapping. But the fact that he extracted the dye, there's no chiv. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, yes. Chayiv shtayim, is chayiv two. Why? Shoyi Rabbi Yehuda Omer, psia, extraction of the dye from this chilazon, snail or fish, is bichlal disha. It is regarded as the malach of disha. What is disha again? That is threshing the kernels of the grain, extracting it from its husk, from its encasement, from the stalks. So disha means extracting something. This fellow who's doing paitzeya, he is extracting the dye from the chilazon. He's also performing the malach of disha. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's chayiv two chatois, one for tzeda, for trapping, and two for disha. Amar Loi, Chacham respond to Rabbi Yehuda, no, ein betzia b'chlal disha. Betzia, extraction of the dye, is not included in the malach of disha. Why? Amar Rava, my time of the Rabbana. What is their reason? Because they maintain ein disha elo ligidule karka, only something which is organic entails the malach of disha, but something which is from a chilazon, there's no malach of disha involved there. Says the Gemara, okay, so we have a machlekes, whether it's just tzeda, whether it's tzeda and also disha. What about netilas neshama, taking of a life, which that is also a malacha. V'lechayiv nami mishum netilas neshama. Why is it not chayiv for simply putting it to death? Apparently, he extracted the dye when it was already mace. Even if you maintain that he extracted the dye while it was alive, and he actually took its life, he didn't do a malacha on netilas neshama because he was preoccupied. He was misasik with something else. What was he preoccupied with? With extracting the dye. He had no intention of being noitel neshama, of taking life, of killing the chilazon. Therefore, it's not considered to be a malacha. We know that for Shabbos, we read Mechas Machshavos. We learned on Daf Ayin Beis regarding other malachas as well. We learn from the pasuk Asher Chata Ba. If a person is not involved in what he's doing, he's involved in something else, an unrelated activity, he's not liable. So therefore, in this case, says the Gemara, there's no chiyuv for netilas neshama. That's something which is something which is consequential. It's not something which he was involved in. Says the Gemara, but it's inevitable. If he goes in and squeezes his dye, he's going to kill the chilazon. How can you say that he's not involved in taking the life of the chilazon? Even if he has no intention of doing it, he has no purpose, no kavana, but it's something which is inevitable. V'ho Abaye v'Rava. Abaye and Rava both told us, Moider of Shimon, even of Shimon who holds that a davar she'eino miskaven is mutter, that if a person is involved in doing something and somehow it results in doing a malacha, which he had no kavana for, he's pater. Nevertheless, Rav Shimon agrees that in a case where it's inevitable, for instance, cutting off the head of a chicken, and he wants it to stay alive, It's ridiculous. It's inevitable that cutting off the head of the chicken will result in its death. Moeder of Shimon says, psik reisha, chopping off the head below yamas. He wants it to remain alive. It's impossible. So something which is inevitable to come as a result of his action relates to him, does connect to him. You can't say he's not connected to that result. See, here too says the word about the chilazon, extracting the dye results in the misa of the chilazon. Why isn't he chayiv for that malacha? Says the Gemara, here is different. Shani hach, here is different. Why? The kama de is be neshama tzfei nichale. In this case, he wants the chilazon to remain alive because kama de is be neshama, as long as it still remains alive, tzfei nichale, it is preferable to him. Why? Ki heichi de litzel tzivei. So the dye is that this color should retain its high quality. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi here is 9 lines from the bottom, beginning with the words Tzfei Nichale. Says Rashi, Shadam Achai, because live blood is Toiv Medam Mace, is higher in quality than the dam of the chilazon, which is already mace. Explains Rashi, V'kivon Dekol Atzmai, Miskaven, since this person is wholeheartedly trying, making an effort, V'tarech L'Shamrei, is safeguarding this chilazon shelo yamas, so it doesn't die biyadai, because he's trying to keep it alive, to retain the quality of the dye. In this case, it's different, says Rashi. Even if this will result in death, afilu meis, ein kan ela mesasik. This is regarded as a mesasik because he's preoccupied with extracting the dye. He doesn't want the chilazon to lose its life. He wants it to remain alive. So he's opposed to this consequence. Says Rashi, V'chi moida Reb Shimon. When did we say that Reb Shimon agrees? He's moida that if it's inevitable from his actions, he is accountable for it. That's only in the case, in the case where he's indifferent. He has no kavanah to bring about that result. But he had no kavanah to bring about those results. Over there, Shimon says, if he's involved in an activity which results in a malacha being done without his kavanah, without his intentions, something which he's indifferent to, so if that happens, if it's inevitable that would happen, for instance, in the case of chopping off the head of the chicken, where it's inevitable that it will die, there Reb Shimon would agree that he is chayiv, he's held accountable for it. However, in our case, it's not merely an indifference, he actually opposes the misa of the chilazon. Therefore, the misa doesn't relate to him, and he's not held accountable for it. So in summary, we learned about tzad chilazon. Upaitzoy, a person traps the chilazon snail, extracts his dye. How many mlachos are involved? According to Rabbanan, only tzeda. Dash doesn't apply because it is not gidulei karka. According to Rav Yehuda, dash will apply as well. Why doesn't netilas neshama apply? The Gemara gives us two reasons. Either it was already dead to begin with, or he's regarded as a misasik with regard to netilas neshama. It doesn't relate to him. He's not held accountable for it. Continues the Gemara. V'ashoichtai. We learned in the Mishnah that shchita is an av malacha. Says the Gemara, we know that all av malachas need to be a part of the construction of the Mishkan. Sheichet mishamai chayev. Why is a person chayev? Which malacha is sheichet regarded as? Says Rashi. This is Rashi 3 lines from the bottom. Sheichet mishamai mechayev. Shchita b'melechas hamishkan heicha u'mayavidta. Where do we find the concept of shchita in the melechas hamishkan? What did shchita do there? If perhaps shchita was applied to the process of the oires, making the hides of the rams, lama libu shchita. Who says there was shchita there? Bechanika namisagi, you can choke them. Who says there was a ma'aser shchita, melech of shchita in the Mishkan? So why do we state that a sheichet is a chayev, is regarded as a malacha, on account of what? Says the Gemara, we have machlekes. Rabba amar mishum tzeveya. He's chayiv because he dies, he's coloring. What is he coloring? The area around the beis hashchita, the place of the slaughtering, gets red due to the dam of the shchita. So that is the malacha of sheichet because of tzeveya. Ushmula amar mishum netilas neshama. That sheichet is chayiv on account of netilas neshama, which indeed was prevalent in the Mishkan. So although the ma'aser shchita specifically was perhaps not done in the Mishkan, but netilas neshama was, They used to do the elim. As Rashi brings, they used to do the tachash as well. So they used to kill these animals. Netilas neshama was done in the Mishkan. So once again, according to Rav, it's tzeveya. According to Shmuel, netilas neshama. Says the Gemara, Rav is telling us that the only reason why he's chayiv when he's sheichet is because of tzeveya. What happened to netilas neshama? Mishum tzeveya in. Is it only on account of dying of tzeveya? Mishum netilas neshama loy? And not on account of netilas neshama? Certainly, he took the life of the animal. So why is Rav exempted from that? Says more Ema say as follows: Af mishum tzeveya. Rav didn't mean to negate netilas neshama. He meant to add another malacha. Not only is he chayiv one chatas on account of netilas neshama, but shchita also involves tzeveya. Explains the Gemara. Amar Rav, Milsa da Amri. This statement that I've said, Ema ba Milsa. This statement that I've made that shchita involves tzeveya. Let me go explain it. Ema ba Milsa. So that the later generations won't come along, and they'll come laugh at me. They'll make a mockery of my halacha. What does he need the tzviya for? As Mepharshim point out, since it's not necessary, he has no benefit from coloring the area around the Beis HaShchita with the blood. It's not regarded as a malacha, it's not derech malacha. Therefore Rav explains, yes, there's actually a benefit derived from having that area colored with the blood. Nicha, he is pleased that the litvas Beis HaShchita dama, so that the area around the makom of the shchita and the animal gets soaked, gets colored with the blood. So that the people will go ahead and notice it. They'll come by from him, they'll see that's a freshly slaughtered animal. So indeed there's a purpose, there's a benefit, there's a te'elis. Objective reached and accomplished by having the dam color the area around the Beis HaShchita. Therefore, he's chayiv on account of the malacha of tzeveya, in addition to netilas neshama. So once again, the malacha of shchita is based on netilas neshama, according to Rav. There's an additional malacha as well of tzeveya. Continues the Gemara, if one salts the hide and tans it, processes it, says the Gemara, why are they regarded as two separate malachas? They're part of the same process of tanning, of processing the leather. Salting is part of the ibud. It's one and the same malach. Says the Gemara, they both said, yes indeed. We're not meant to regard them as two separate malachas. Take one out. And instead, in order to reach the number of 39, insert another malacha which is called sirtut. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi is here directly on the left side. Va'ayel sirtut. Says Rashi, what exactly is this? Lefisha derech haratzonon. It was the custom of the shoemakers. When it comes to slice the leather, misar to the tchila. Kefi mashuroitza. First he engraves a mark. Kefi mashuroitza, to the measure that he needs. Laharich, laharchev, lekatzer, hachituch, to lengthen, to shorten, to laharich, to lengthen, laharchev, to make narrow, lekatzer, to shorten, hachituch. So he's meant to mark exactly where he needs to cut. And then he goes ahead and he passes the knife over this mark. And this indeed was found in the Mishkan. So before they cut them, they need to mark it to know exactly what size to cut them. So this is a malacha, and this replaces one of those of Moichayim Abdoi. They're regarded as one, and went to insert another malacha, the malacha of Sirtit. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rabba Barafuna. Hayman the malach bisra, one who excessively salts meat. Chayev mishum ma'abed. He's doing the malach of ma'abed. He's processing it. Rav Amar no. Ein ibud ba'oichlin. This concept of ibud doesn't apply to foodstuffs. Therefore, it's not a malach of ma'abed. Amar Vashi va'afilu Rabba Barafuna. Lo Yamar. Even Rabba Barafuna says that salting the meat entails the malach of ma'abed. He's only speaking about ella to kabale le'urcha. If he needs it for the trip, meaning he's overly salting it to preserve it, to have it to preserve it, to maintain it for his trip. But if it's for household use, there's no concern. Why? Because there it's just a little bit of salt, and it's just coming to add flavoring, etc. It's not coming to process the meat. Just a little bit salt is no concern. Lo mashvi inish. A person doesn't make. He doesn't make his food into a piece of wood. He doesn't dry it up like a piece of wood, make it inedible like a piece of wood. So if it's for home use, if it's for domestic use, there's no concern. A little bit salt is certainly not regarded as ma'abit. Rabbi Rav Huna was speaking about excessively salting it to preserve it and maintain it for his trip. Continues the Gemara, V'amemachkoi, v'amemachatchoi, Omar Rabba of Acha Bar Chanina, Hashaf ben amudim, chayev mishum memachik. Rashi explains, Shaf ben amudim means he smooths out the earth between the amudim, between these poles, beams that they would lean on. So he smooths out the earth to make it, to enable it for proper sitting there, proper leaning. So this is a malacha. Which malacha? Mishum memachik. Memachik is that malacha of smoothing out the hide, the leather, removing the hair. So this is also that type of malacha. Now the Rishonim asked Rashi that haven't we learned that smoothing out earth, if it's in a field, it's chayrish. If it's done in the home, it's baina. So why do we relate to here as a mamachik? Tosfos indeed learns, he brings the pirush of Ben Chananel, that it's not speaking about smoothing out the actual earth, but rather he's shaf oyer ala amud klirachliko. He takes a piece of leather and he rubs it back and forth on the amud, on this pole, to make the leather smooth. And indeed, this is a malacha of mamachik. Omar Rav Chia bar Abba, Gimel Dvarim. There are three scenarios, three halachas. Sachli Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi told me Bishmei to Rav Shimon Levi. The name of Shimon Levi. These are three similar types of activities, which actually entail three different malachas. So the first one is Hamegare Roshe Klunsois B'Shabbos, one who scrapes off the tips of these rods on Shabbos. Chayev Mishum Mechatech. That is considered as a malacha mechatech because he's cutting it down to a specific size. Hamamerech retia b'Shabbos. One who smears the retia, the bandage, this potion there, so he smears it on Shabbos. Chayev mishum memachik, because he's smoothing it out. V'amesate says even b'Shabbos. If one smooths out the stone, he chips the stone to make it smooth. This is a stone which was already removed from its quarry, and now he's smoothing it out. Chayev mishum makeh b'patish. Makeh b'patish, once again, is literally referring to the blowing of the hammer. So this hammer that was used to flatten out the silver plates, it needed to be very smooth. And in order to do that, after they finished, they would go ahead and bang the hammer onto a block of wood to make sure that the bottom of the hammer, the surface of the hammer, is very smooth and fit for malacha, for craft. So this is a term applied to all activities which are regarded as a gemar malacha. The finishing touch is the culmination of a malacha. So whenever a person does a ma'isa which is regarded as a culmination of a malacha, for instance, smoothing out this even, which is regarded as the finishing touches on this even, there's a chiyuv of makeh b'patish. Continues the Gemara, Omar of Shimon ben Kisma, another couple examples of makeh b'patish. Omar of Shimon Lakish, har tzor tzura b'kli, one who applies a design in a kli, he engraves a design. He blows, he does glass blowing, he takes this molten glass and blows it into a utensil. Chayav mishum makeh b'patish. These are examples of makeh b'patish. Omar Vida, another example, Haiman the shakal akufi meglimi. Chayav mishum makeh b'patish. One who is shakal, he removes these protrusions, these things that stick out, that kupi, the loose threads or some sort of splinters that got entangled in the weave. So he removes these akupi from the glimi, from the garment. Chayav mishum makeh b'patish. This also is regarded as a culmination, finishing touches on the product. Vani immediately this is only concerned the kapet elayu. If he's concerned about them, if he cares to remove them, in that case, the kli is not regarded as completed until he actually cleans it from these phenomena. Now, the Gemara here is referring to this activity as a makeh b'patish. A person blows glass into a utensil, it's only a makeh b'patish. Now the Farshim ask a kasha, why isn't it regarded as binyan? Tosfos on Daf Ayin Dal tells us that although we know that ein binyan b'kelim, the concept of binyan, of boina, this malacha only applies to something which is mechuber l'karka, not something which is a utensil. Nevertheless, Tosfos points out that if one was to actually create a utensil on Shabbos, that certainly is regarded as baina. So why does the Gemara refer to this person who's creating this glass utensil? It's merely makeh b'patish. Why not baina? So if I should say, apparently according to Taisus, he didn't actually create this glass anew. It had already a form of a kli. He merely enhanced it, he enlarged it, etc. So in this case, it's not regarded as baina, but rather as makeh b'patish. Continues the Gemara about kosev shteyosis, one who writes 2 letters. This is regarded as a melacha. Tana Rabban, we learned in the Brayso, kosev ois achas gedola. What if instead of writing 2 letters, he writes this large letter, which is the size of 2 small letters? V'yesh b'mekoyma lichtev shtei shtayim. So it's in the place of 2 ordinary letters, 2 medium-sized letters. He makes this large letter instead of 2. Pater is pater. He didn't do a malacha. He only made 1 letter. Mochak ois achas gedola. What if he erases this large letter? And we know that mochak, erasing something on Shabbos, is a malacha, provided it is al manas lichtev. He's doing it to enable, to prepare for writing. So he erases a letter in order to write in its place. So what if he erases this large letter? V'yesh b'mekoyma lichtev shtayim, and in its place there's enough room to write 2 letters. Chayv, in this case is chayv. Why this discrepancy between kosev ois achas gedola, which is pater, and mochek, which is chayv? Let's take a look at Rashi here. Rashi is off to the left. Says Rashi, the words beginning kosav ois achas gedola v'chulu pater. Explains Rashi, why was it necessary to write 2 letters to complete the malacha? Because that's the manner in which they were kosev in the Mishkan. Shebekroshia Mishkan, when it came to the crush and the biza Mishkan, shtayim ayu kosev, they would write 2 letters. Achas bezu, 1 letter on beam A, v'achas bezu, and another letter on beam B. K'dei lezabgan, in order to pair them together, when they dismantle them. They wanted to determine the precise location of these beams. So he wanted to know which one was near the other. So when they erect the Mishkan again, they will know how to properly arrange the krushim. So it involved 2 letters, 1 on this keresh and 1 on its neighboring keresh. So therefore 2 letters are a requirement for the melach of kosev. Therefore, if he merely writes 1 letter, as large as it may be, he didn't do the melach of kosev. Why, with regard to mochek, do we say it's different? Says Rashi. Mochak ois achas v'chulu chayv. Says Rashi, she'em melechas mechika chashuva. Ella almanas lichte. The point of mechika, of erasing, it's not really a malach on its own. It has no significance on its own. Only because it is almanas lichte. It is preparing. It is in anticipation for writing. So when he erases a letter in order to write in its place another letter, that's why it's regarded as a malacha. If so, says Rashi, when he erases this large size letter, which leaves him space to write 2 letters, this is regarded as a malacha chashuva, a significant malacha, because he cleared space for 2 oisis. And 2 oisis are regarded as a malacha chashuva. Therefore, if he erases this large letter and creates an empty space available for 2 letters to be written, he's doing the malacha of mochek. Let's get back to the Gemara inside. Omar Rav Nachman Rav Yosi, v'zeh chomer, this indeed is a chumra, stringency, be'mochek mi be'kosev, that mochek has over kosev, as we just mentioned. That mochek, a large letter, is chayiv, kosev, a large letter, is pat. Continues the Gemara, haboine v'asoiser. One who builds, he dismantles, ha'machaber, he puts out a fire, ha'maver, he kindles a fire, ha'makeh b'patish. Rabbi Rav Zeridam Tavayu, they both explain, they both define the guideline of makeh b'patish. Kol midi, any action, the izbei mar malacha, which is a culmination, which is a finishing touch on a product, chayav mishum makeh b'patish. Continues the Gemara, elu avos malachis. The Mishnah uses the word elu to denote something specific. These, only these are avos malachis. And we're coming to exclude something. Elu lafuke. What do we come to exclude? Midr Rabbi Lezer from the Shita Rabbi Lezer, the Amachayiv. He is Machayiv even al told makamav. Rabbi Lezer holds that if a person should do a malacha, an av malacha, and also the toilada of that av malacha, for instance, zoireya and zoimer, which is a derivative of zoireya or of neteya, so he does an av and a toilada. He does it behelam echas, in one lapse of unawareness, one lapse of forgetfulness, one shgaga. The Av is separate and the Telad is separate. The Mishnah is coming lafuki, to exclude, to negate that shita. No, only these 39 malachas are independent entities. They have their own unique liabilities. But if one should do an Av together with its derivative, they are regarded as one and the same, and only one liability results. Continues the Gemara. The Mishnah concludes once again with citing the number of the malachas. So the Gersa here are boim chasar achas. Why does the Mishnah need to quote the number twice? We begin with the number and end with the number. Says the Gemara is coming to teach us something. La fuke Rav Yudah. The Mishnah is coming to exclude from the Shita of Yudah, who added more to the list. The Sani of Yudah told us. Rav Yudah Moisev es ha-shoivit ha-medaktik. He adds to the list of malachas shoivit, which is arranging the straightening out the vertical threads in the loom. Ha-medaktik. He arranges he straightens out the horizontal threads. So there are specific malachas in the looming process, in the weaving process. According to Rav Yudah, these two are regarded as malachas. Amr Lo Chacham responded, no. Why do you regard them as separate malachas? Shovet hari b'chal meisich. The straightening out the horizontals are included in the malach of meisich, and medaktek with the verticals, harayu b'chlal oireg, that is included in the malach of oireg of weaving, and they're not regarded as separate malachas. So this is what the Mishnah is coming to teach us. We only have 39. We don't add another 2. So in summary, we learned several guidelines regarding various malachas. We discussed the malach of sheichet. Why is he held accountable? What is the sheichet based on? It is based on the malach of Netilas Neshama. According to Rav, we add another malach, mishum tzeveya, because he is pleased with the Beis HaShchita becoming soaked and red, so that it's obvious that it's a freshly slaughtered animal, and the customers will come by it. According to Rav, there are 2 malachas involved. We learned that maleach and ma'abed, salting and tanning the hide, are regarded as one and the same malacha. Instead, we insert an additional malacha of sirtut, making that mark on the leather to enable its cutting. We discussed that if one excessively salts meat to take on the trip, on the road, to preserve it, there's a machlekes. Whether that's called ma'abed, or whether ma'abed does not apply to foodstuffs. We learned that the guideline, the malacha patish, is something which is gemar malacha, something which achieves the culmination, is the finishing touches of the product. We have 2 diyukim in our Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Elu, only these are independent malachas we're coming to exclude. The teilada, if one does a teilada derivative together with the av, they're regarded as one and the same. There's no 2 separate liabilities. The Mishnah concludes with the number 39 to teach us. La'afuki, to exclude shevet and medaktik, we're not meant to add them to the list. Continues the Mishnah. V'oid klal acher amru. We have another general rule. This is in addition to the klal gadol mentioned at the beginning of the parak. What is this additional rule with regard to halachas of Shabbos? The Mishnah says as follows: Kol hakosher latzniya, any object which is fit, which is suitable latzniya, to store, something which is has significance, a person retains it for his personal use. So it's the right type of item. Umatzniya kamayu, and in its size and shape, it has enough volume that is considered to be significant enough that a person would store it. So it has both qualities. It fits both criteria. It's an item which is suitable, and it has the proper size and measure that we regard as a significant chayfetz. If so, v'yitziu b'Shabbos chayav chatas olav. If he takes this item which is chashav and carries it out on Shabbos, that is the malach of eitzah and is chayav. However, says the Mishnah, if it has no significance, because she'ein kosh latzniya, it's not something which is kosher latzniya, something which is suitable to store. The person doesn't care for this item. It's not something which is generally stored on account of its small size. So either way, either it's lacking the quality, or even if it's the right quality, but it doesn't have the right quantity, it's too small, insignificant to be stored, to be retained. If he should carry it on Shabbos, he's not chayiv. Only if a specific person decided to actually set this aside, it is dear to him, this person is chayiv. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi, which is 4 lines from the bottom. Says Rashi, if this item became dear to this person, even though for the general population they don't regard it as something which is significant, but for him it is. And he stored it. He is chayiv if he carries it. Why? If he carried it out. But an ordinary person ain't a chayiv. He's not chayiv. Because for the ordinary person, this is not regarded as a malacha. It's something insignificant. It doesn't have the chashivas of a chayfetz, and there's no malacha beitzah on this chayfetz. Continues the Gemara. The Mishnah gave us a term of a kol hakosher latzniya, anything which is fit, suitable for storing. Lafuki mai. What are we coming to exclude? Rav Papa amar lafuki dam nida, a dam of a nida, something which is useless and is considered to be elei kosher latzniya. Marukva, another example, Afuki Atzi Asher, to exclude wood from an Asherah tree which was worshipped as an Avodah Zarah, and that is regarded as useless, and there's no Chiv of Eitzah. Mando Amar Dam Nida, according to the Shita that says Dam Nida, is useless, Kolshken Atzi Asher. Certainly Atzi Asher falls into this category. As Rashi points out, it's Asur Bahana. One must destroy it. Certainly that's not called Kosher Latzniya. However, according to the Shita who says that's referring to Atzi Asher, Aval Dam Nida, Matzna Leilashunra. Dam Nida, he sets it aside, he stores it for to feed it to the cat, and therefore it is regarded as a significant chayfetz, and is called kosher latzniya. V'idach, the other Shita holds no. Dam Nida is insignificant, it's useless. Given the cholsha, since it weakens the person when it's fed to the animal, the person who the dam belongs to gets weak. Or as the Ramban explains, when the dam is fed to the animal, it hurts the animal, it weakens the animal. Therefore, he doesn't store it, doesn't keep it. It's rendered useless. Omar Rav Yosef Rechanina, our Mishnah, who maintains that if a person has a certain measure, a certain shear of an item, which is regarded, generally regarded as a standard shear, which renders it fit for consumption, is regarded as davar chasher for the ordinary typical person. We apply that concept to everybody, all across the board. Anybody who will carry out this item, which contains this proper shear, he's chayiv. Rav Shimon disagrees. He says, all these measurements that are discussed in the following Mishnahs, which gives us different shiurim for various items in reference to the Melacha Beitzah, these shiurim were only said elo lamatzni'ein. These are only said in regard to people that indeed they attribute significance to this type of share. But let's say a person is a wealthy person, to him this doesn't have any meaning. According to Reb Shimon, he's not chayiv on eitzah. So now Mishnah apparently negates the shita of Reb Shimon, disagrees with Reb Shimon. Because our Mishnah applies this concept all across the board. Once the chayfetz has this quantity, this proper shear, is regarded as a significant chayfetz, and there's a chiv eitzah to anybody across the board. Okay, time for a brief chazorah of today's daf. We began with 3 halachas in the name of Rav. If one was to tighten the chut shel tefira, to tighten the stitches that became unraveled, he's doing a malach of teifer. If a person learns even a dvar Torah from this magash who incites people for avodah zarah, he's chayiv misa. A person who does not exercise his intellectual abilities to be machashev the heavenly bodies, the calculation of the constellations, doesn't truly recognize and appreciate Hashem's presence and control of the world, Asur lilmod himenu, one is not meant to learn from him. Rabbi Yechon tells us it's actually a mitzvah to engage himself in these calculations. The Gemara proceeded with the halacha of tzad chilazon u'paitzai, one who traps this chilazon snail and extracts his dye. What malach is involved? According to Rabban, only the malach of tzed, of trapping. Dash, it doesn't apply to something which doesn't grow from the ground. According to their view, the dash will apply as well. Why isn't he chayiv for netilas neshama, for removing of life? The Gemara gives us 2 answers. We're speaking about a case where it was already mace beforehand, or the Gemara tells us another reason, because he's misasik eitzel netilas neshama. He actually opposes the death of this chilaz and he wants it to remain alive. He negates the secondary malacha. He doesn't want it. Therefore, he's not held accountable for it. We learned several guidelines in reference to some malachas. The malacha of sheichet, on what? Why is he held accountable? What is it based on? Shmuel tells us because of netilas neshama. He's removing life. Rav says there's an additional malacha as well because of tzeveya. We learned that maleach and ma'abit are regarded as a single malacha. Rather, we insert an additional malacha to our Mishnah, malacha of sirtut, making those marks to enable proper cutting of the leather. We learned that if one is moileach basar, he salts the meat to preserve it. We have machlekes whether it's regarded as a malacha of ma'abed. We discussed halacha of makbeh patish, which is the culmination, the finishing touches on a utensil. Gemara told us that if one does a malacha of a tolda together with the av, it's only regarded as one malacha. It's not chayiv two separate malachas, two separate chatois. We learned that lamates malachas, the 39, are exact. And when I'm meant to include the malachas of Shevet and Medaktek, since it's already included in the malachas mentioned in this list, we can include it with the malacha of Hitzah. If an item has both qualities, it is suitable for use, it is generally stored. A person attributes significance to it on account of both aspects, on account of its quality and on account of its share, its quantity. When he takes his chayfetz and carries it out, he's chayiv on the malacha of Hitzah.